call it a first, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm starting to agree with Tucker Carlson on some things. First of all, he is very anti go to war with Iran. He's right on that issue. He's been right about the Ukraine issue, even though he is pro-Russia and he's full of Russian propaganda. And I think Tucker Carlson is a despicable human being. But the last couple of days, I find myself agreeing with him. He had a chance to sit down on his show and speak with Ted Cruz. Now, I've been very clear about Cancun Cruz. He's another despicable human being. He's a right-wing turd who only cares about himself. When he ran for president, he called Donald Trump a liar and every single name in the book. In fact, I think he was harsher on Donald Trump than even I am. And then all of a sudden, when Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States, he wears the Donald Trump knee pads. He has no credibility. He flies off to Cancun and then blames his kids when the entire state he was in and his constituents were in an emergency. So this is the point in the interview, Leonard, where Tucker is asking Ted Cruz about Iran. As you know, Ted Cruz is one of the few Republicans now very outspoken about, yes, we need to go to war with Iran. No doubt in Ted Cruz's mind, Donald Trump's doing the right thing. But Tucker Carlson starts questioning him on some very basic things about Iran that Ted Cruz can't answer. Have a listen to this.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
Who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel.
Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, so Leonard, there's a lot to dissect there. Let me just quickly review, and then I want to get your thoughts. Ted Cruz did say we were bombing Iran. Okay, when you say we, that means we're included in that. He doesn't know. We're talking about the very basics. When you are going to be involved in a war and you're a sitting senator, you probably should know a little bit about that country that we are going to bomb. He doesn't know the population of Iran. He doesn't even know any background of the people that live in the country. And then he's making it like it's some sort of gotcha question that Tucker Carlson is doing. And I'm very glad Tucker Carlson did do that because, again, it exposes how stupid and uneducated and ill-informed Ted Cruz is. And he's just going to vote and do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do.
I think a lot of shady MAGAs operate that way. They just get a few talking points. They hear what Trump says. They watch Fox News. But I would agree with you. I don't like Tucker Carlson. I think he's a bad person. I think he's a bad seed. And he's done a lot of things to advance his own career. In fact, people are saying that he pulled this interview because he's not on the news station anymore and he's trying to get popular again. But I would agree with you with regard to Tucker Carlson because anything that's objectively correct, you should probably agree with, right? No matter where you stand. And this was a stunt by him to get some attention, and it worked. But I do believe that Ted Cruz should know a lot about that country because regime change has been discussed. Leadership has been discussed. He should know that there's 90 to 92 million people. He should know that.
But he's not alone. What you just said is correct.
Ask any MAGA.
Most MAGA Republicans that are in office, I believe if they were in that same chair, they would have been unable to answer the same questions that Tucker was asking Ted Cruz. So I agree with you. I think these are many of the Republicans, just like a Marjorie Taylor Greene who votes for a big, beautiful bill. And then all of a sudden, when she finds out what's actually in the bill, she's like, oh, well, I didn't read that. That's what these MAGA Republicans do. They will vote along the lines on whatever orange man tells them to do. That's exactly what Ted Cruz is doing here. He doesn't even know the basics of the population.
He kind of did, though, because He said they're predominantly Persians. That's accurate. He said that he said the most popular religion is Shiite. I don't believe it is.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of Shiite influence in that country. So if he would have just relaxed and instead of trying to be shady MAGA, that's my expression, shady MAGAs. If he would have just answered it with the knowledge that he thought he had, I think he would have done much better in the interview. But good for Tucker Carlson for bringing out some real facts.
Yeah. So it gets worse. So there is a new clip that is out right now that was released earlier today. This is another clip where Tucker Carlson is absolutely just cooking Ted Cruz, and another example of how ignorant Ted Cruz is, and the fact that so many right-wingers on social media and interviews, when they talk about whether the U.S. should go to war, they keep basing it off of passages in the Bible. This is very embarrassing. Listen to this exchange.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my, you pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. I'm not a very religious person, but I can guarantee you there is nothing in the Bible that says we must support Israel under any government regime when it comes to any of their choices, in this case, going to war with Iran. There is absolutely nothing in the Bible that says that. Ted Cruz is an idiot. He's making that claim. And when Tucker Carlson, correctly so, who also happens to be a Christian, it's important to note, is basically calling on Ted Cruz's crap and BS, he can't recite a verse or anything in the Bible that would claim that. It's just like when a MAGA Republican sometimes calls into this show and they call me a liar, and then I say, okay, what did I lie about? And then they hang up the phone. That's exactly what Ted Cruz is doing right now. It's embarrassing. And by the way, whatever happened, even if that was true, which by the way, Leonard, it's not. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state? You don't go by the Bible to foreign policy, and in this case, maybe getting us into another ill-advised war.
I'm a Catholic Christian, and I promise you that I've read the Bible from cover to cover many times because it's pretty difficult to understand. It's mostly stories and parables, but I can tell you that I never read anything like that. And what they're talking about in the Bible, quick context, they're talking about the 12 tribes of Israel that originally formed. That's what they're talking about. And they had nowhere to colonize. And that became, quote unquote, Israel. And David and Solomon were the kings, and they both got booted. And then after that, you can't really put your finger on exactly what the 12 tribes of Israel was and exactly what they were talking about. But you have to remember that's also Old Testament. So you would have to only go by the Old Testament, the original covenant, the original promise. The new covenant is the new part of the Bible where Jesus comes on scene. So you would have to differentiate between what exactly they were saying. But I can tell you that at no time have I ever been told, ever read about that, how we have to, be faithful to Israel. I don't remember it ever saying.
Well, because it's not in there.
Genesis.
Because it's not in there, Leonard. It's well spoken. You're absolutely right. So this is a point in the interview where Tucker Carlson questions Ted Cruz on his foreign policy failures. Yes, we do know Ted Cruz has voted pretty much on everything that has not worked out correctly when it comes to foreign policy. And this is where Ted Cruz once again gets very defensive. And I love what Tucker Carlson did here. Have a listen to this.
And I see an unaids.
That right there, in that moment, is a microcosm of a larger picture of the entire MAGA Republican Party today, which is,
Good
Leonard,
point.
Ted Cruz voted to going to war against Russia, and he voted for these specific foreign policy issues where so many people have lost their lives, and even Ted Cruz in this interview admits it's been a total disaster. And instead of saying, shouldn't have voted for this, it was a mistake, I never wanted this to happen, what does Ted Cruz do? Not only does he not take any responsibility for his voting record, abysmal voting record, but he does what almost every other MAGA Republican does, blame it on Joe Biden. No, Mr. Cruz, this is not Joe Biden's fault. This is partially your fault, as Tucker Carlson correctly pointed out. It's exactly the Donald Trump playbook right now. Because when I give you the statistics of what's going on in this country right now, where inflation is up to 3%, the growth is down 1.4%, as I've mentioned before, unemployment rate up to 4.5%, they want to blame Joe Biden. If, in fact, we do go to war with Iran, which it appears we are, they'll blame it on Joe Biden. They'll say it's Joe Biden's war. Donald Trump, end the war in 24 hours in Ukraine. Blame it on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's weakness, instead of owning any responsibility for anything Ted Cruz has done in his life. Now, should we be surprised? Remember when Ted Cruz flew to Cancun? When his entire state of Texas was in a state of emergency, right? It was a gridlock there. It was a state of emergency. What did Ted Cruz do? He decided to get in a plane with his wife and his kids and leave the state and go on vacation. Then when he was caught and he had to face the music, did he apologize? No. He blamed his kids. You couldn't blame Joe Biden for that. So he blamed his kids because Ted Cruz is a coward.